So there's this guy, his name's Clay Travis, right? And he was talking about, he was putting up $1 million. I don't know. He's a radio host, I think. I guess they just give radio hosts $1 million. He must have a bag to be throwing $1 million.
It's just a few things.
So he was saying something about he would put up $1 million for a high school basketball team of his choosing against the WNBA champions, right? And Chelsea Gray came out and she said, that guy's a dumbass. Pat Bev came out and he was like, he's on drugs. And I'm looking at it and this is my opinion, I'm leaning towards the woman because he's not just talking about any team. Like, he's talking about, like, household names, like Asia Wilson, like Candace Parker, like Kelsey Plum. You know what I'm saying? Like, bucket, like, people that I know them, like, to be bucket getters, right? So I just think the IQ, even the physicality, like I watch Aerial Powers, right? She's one of my favorite people to watch on TikTok because she has a series where she just goes to gym and she busts dudes' asses. Like they're physical, they push her around and she
talk shit. Yeah.
She used to playing with guys. Like you grow up with that, right? So I'm like, I just feel like the WNBA champions would have so much just IQ, experience, skill, and these are still boys. But then I try to play devil's advocate and I'm like, this is the ball is life in me where I see like Zion when he was a kid or like Cooper Flagg now who's 6'10".
Who guarding Cooper Flagg?
And I'm like, I don't know. I still lean towards the woman just because I've seen it. But what is your take on that? Because you watch so much basketball, so I want to hear like
your perspective.
Educated perspective.
I'm not sure who the top boys high school team is, but the Las Vegas Aces as a collective are an absolute problem.
Unit.
That is a historic team. There's a reason that you had not seen a back-to-back champ in the WNBA in the past 20 years, 21, it might be 21, until they did it this past season. It's crazy though, Gio, if I'm honest, I really want to see this happen, right? Because I do buy that the women would win. But it is also ridiculous to think that from the guy that proposed this, you're going to get a winning outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It would be, oh, well, you're pros, you're supposed to win. Or if you lose, like, I told you boys.
You so. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
And so I really hate this. There's two things that are happening, I think, in the growth of women's sports. On the one hand, you hate a dialogue that is so just asinine and redundant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as the sport grows, not that you don't get to control the dialogue, but like the fodder is good in a way.
Yeah.
For so long, you'd show up to a women's basketball game or WNBA game and like, it's thank you for coming from the athletes and coaches to the media because you're starved for coverage and opportunity. Now, as more coverage is coming, the assholes come too.
Yeah.
Right?
It's inevitable.
And so there's a part of me that's like, all right, we talking about it. Same kind of thing with the Final Four. I'm sitting in Dallas, y'all, and I had no idea that Twitter was blowing up over this whole thing with Angel and Caitlin.
Yeah.
Because in our meetings prior to the games, both of us told us how they played with their brothers, cousins, a bunch of guys, and trash talking is a thing.
Yeah.
So me watching, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is nothing.
That ain't nothing.
It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Do you think that hurt her?
Who?
Angel Reese? Like the whole.
You see how many bags she got?
Oh no, for sure. No, I'm just saying. I'm
Hell
talking about.
no.
But I'm talking about like. I think this is the first time I've ever seen like you mentioned all those names before of like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Paige Becker. It's like those are like the most known women in women's basketball, and they're superstars, right? So when that happened, it was the most watched game heading into this summer. And then now, like, do you think like all that, the hype, the clout, like her doing that, like, do you think that hurt her?
In what way, Jarvis? No, is my first answer.
Well, yes, I mean, attention is good, but I just feel like her going into that summer, having all that hype, and then not having...
Because they lost and because she's missing from the team?
But they're going to blame her. They're going to blame her for that. I don't think she deserves that. I'm just saying they're going to blame her for that.
I think Angel's great. I think she's good.
For sure.
I think...
There was just negative... I'm just saying there was just obviously a negative connotation around it, but if someone else did it, I don't think it would be a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
But she's very aware of that.
Absolutely.
And has to carry on and handle her business. We could get into the double standards of women, of black women, of queer women. You know what I'm saying? Like all of those things. But again, and this is where I always, when I'm having a conversation, I'm like, I have the capacity to hear you. I may or may not disagree. If you said to me, they lost that first game because their team got a bunch of NIL deals and they wasn't focused. All right. Like,
Right.
okay, it's the first game of the season. You don't think they're gonna get better?
Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that that's an easy and sort of lazy thing to blame it on, but there also could be some real truth to it.
Right.
But it's the first game of the season.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? So again, we talked about NIL a little bit earlier. I think the capacity that these young people have, their bandwidth, do your thing. Do your thing, especially for women in that space, because there is such a finite window if you are maximizing your earning potential as a collegiate athlete.
Absolutely.
You may or may not go on to the WNBA.
Right.
Get that money while you can.
That's for sure. And I also feel like that's just the way, like, where she's from, like she said, like, that's how you ball. Like,
how you play.
Yeah.
it's like, you talk trash, like, you bust somebody's ass, like, that's just what it is. Like, I feel like that's normal. Like,
right. And I got to give credit to the handful of folks that when they got the entire backstory did apologize and acknowledge that, like, you can be a competitor and it's not cute. Like, playing basketball is not performing with the Rockettes and like being a ballerina. Like, there's a reason. If there's any place that isn't appropriate for a woman to talk trash and to do her thing and to own who she is, like, it's in that space.
Absolutely.
So to make sports delicate is like a joke. Now, that obviously was a different conversation and a different tenor. I think it was actually a far more healthier conversation than what this dude Clay Travis is trying to propose, because he's coming at it from a demeaning place, and that's very, very obvious.
Crazy, yeah.
Very demeaning.
But at the same time, if Pat Beverly or whatever NBA player is talking about that and somebody listening is like, what is this dude talking about? And if it somehow brings you to, let me see how good these Las Vegas Aces are, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
Bring the attention.